So I went through the current Steelers 2022 roster and I picked out six guys that I could see making the Pro Football Hall of Fame when their career is over. Obviously, I can't predict the future, right? Some of the guys on this list might not make the Hall of Fame. Some of them, all of them possibly could not make the Hall of Fame. They could possibly all make the Hall of Fame. I have no idea. But to adjust to that, I made three tiers of likelihood of these players making the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The first tier is the probably tier. These are players that are extremely likely, well, not extremely likely, but in 10 years, they're probably going to be Hall of Fame players, borderline Hall of Fame player locks, borderline Hall of Fame locks, right? Then there's the it might happen tier. That's a step below the probably tier, and it's kind of self-explanatory. This includes players who will more likely than not make the Hall of Fame, but it's more of a coin flip than the probably tier. Then there's the I could see it happening tier, the possibly tier, and this is the third tier of Hall of Fame likeliness, where I see a reality these players make the Hall of Fame, but I also see a likely reality these players don't make the Hall of Fame. But it's just like, I can see this happening someday if they keep it up. Got it? Let's go. So we're going to start off with the it could happen tier, the possibly tier. And kicking off this tier is tight end, second year tight end now, Pat Freiermuth. In his rookie season alone, you could make the argument that Pat Freiermuth had a top 5 tight end performance. That alone, already wild, right? But then you actually dive into it and see what he had to overcome to reach that status as a tight end. He had a big season with a quarterback that did not match his skill set, in my opinion. Tight ends thrive in the middle of the field. You see where I'm going with this. Ben Roethlisberger really neglected the middle of the field, in my opinion, and I think you would agree with that. Kenny Pickett, Pat Freiermuth's new quarterback, loves his tight ends. You go back and watch Kenny Pickett's tape at Pitt, he loves his tight end Lucas Kroll, who's a Saint now. Pat Freiermuth is a great pass catcher, an incredible blocker, and I could totally see Pat Freiermuth making the Hall of Fame someday, specifically with a guy like Kenny Pickett or better at quarterback. If he shows he can perform like this and better every year in his career consistently. Now, speaking of Pat Freiermuth's new quarterback, I could see a world where Kenny Pickett makes it into the Hall of Fame. Now, I know I can already hear you guys typing, going to the comments. The hell? He hasn't even played a snap in the NFL. I hear you, and I agree with you. Let me be clear. This inclusion is more because of bias than reason, probably. So, why not? Might as well give you my reason why I see Kenny Pickett making it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame someday. Kenny Pickett's most defining trait at Pittsburgh was his work ethic, his leadership, and his decision making on and off the field. Those three things, plus he has good enough talent to thrive, led to him mastering the Pitt Panthers offense in his senior year at Pitt. If those traits do translate to the NFL, Kenny is really going to work well with the Steelers' NFL talent. Go back, he had an incredible season with college talent. Imagine you give him guys like Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin III, Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens. Kenny Pickett is going to be a really good quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. Now, he's barely on the I could see him making the Hall of Fame list. He's a rookie, obviously hasn't played a single snap. He's barely on this list. But of the rookies in this class, I just see him more likely than anyone else making it into the Hall of Fame someday. I am incredibly confident Kenny Pickett will be a really, really good quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he can translate his skills that made him work in college to the NFL. I see Kenny Pickett possibly, it's barely on this list, but possibly making the Hall of Fame someday. Leave your hateful comments. I know they're coming. I welcome it. Now, the third guy on the I could see it happening list is Najee freaking Harris. He is an incredibly hard worker. There's stories where He's had to get kicked out of the facility because he's studying too much, staying there too late. Running backs coach say, "Hey, Najee, we got to go. It's getting late." Najee did a ton in his rookie season. And one of the saddest things is we never got to see the full potential of rookie Najee Harris. Why? Well, he had an awful offensive line. Go cut on the All-22 film, put it at the end zone angle. Najee did not have any holes to run through at all. It was so disgustingly bad. I felt so bad for him. Now, one thing I look forward to with Najee is that Pat Meyer, our current offensive lines coach, has said they're working more on outside zone runs. I'm a guy who believes Najee Harris is a guy who works really well in open space because what's his biggest trait? The playmaking ability. How do you get that playmaking trait out of a player? You get them into open space and let them make plays. How do you do that? Run outside zones. Run outside instead of inside like we did all season long. When you put Najee into open space, he'll hurdle a guy, stiff arm him to the ground, spin around him, juke him out. Dude, Najee in open space is going to work really, really well. And if Pat Meyer can get that out of his offensive line and some holes, remember we also had some additions, Mason Cole and James Daniels on that offensive line. There are going to be more holes than last season, and there's also going to be more of an opening of the playbook for Najee Harris. I expect him to get even better in his sophomore year. Now, he's not perfect, right? There were times where he's had open holes and he just totally made the wrong decision and went into players instead of through the hole. Go watch it on the tape. You'll see it. Now, what I love about Najee, he does not go down easy. He's a power runner. Gets extra yards where guys like James Conner didn't, Benny Snell didn't, Anthony McFarland did it. It's way too early to lock Najee Harris into the Hall of Fame, but I could absolutely see Najee Harris making a run for the Hall of Fame one day if he keeps this performance up. Moving on to the he might be a Hall of Famer list, there's only one guy here. It's the new guy who just got paid, Minkah Fitzpatrick. So far, Minkah has had 3 incredible seasons with the Dolphins and Steelers. And in a vacuum, if he keeps performing like that, he would put himself in the Hall of Fame conversation someday. He's a ball hawk. He led the Steelers in tackles by a mile. You go look at the Steelers defensive tackle leaders. It's Minkah at 84, and then Terrell Edmonds at 63. Minkah Fitzpatrick led the team in tackles by a mile. Now, the reason he's not in the probably a Hall of Famer tier, in my opinion, is because he had an awful 2021 season, right? We're talking he had a lot of missed tackles that led to him giving up big plays, costly plays. It's bad. It's all bad. But with that being said, he was also thrown into an awful situation. You go cut on the tape. Because Devin Bush and Joe Schober, our middle linebackers, were trash, they weren't doing the jobs that they were supposed to do. So what happens? Minkah drops down into the front 7 and makes the plays that guys like Devin Bush should be making. Guys like Joe Schober should be making. Plays at the line of scrimmage end up being plays by Minkah Fitzpatrick all the way from the secondary. Asking a safety to play linebacker? Yeah, I don't know how you're going to have a good season being asked to do so damn much. If you can stick to one thing and get really, really good at it, I think that's most optimal for a safety or any player in the NFL. That's why players, pick positions since high school, I'm confident Minkah will return back to his first 3 years form, but because of 2021, I'm just a little bit concerned, and I'm going to drop Minkah into he might be in the Hall of Fame someday. Now, moving on to the probably a Hall of Famer column, these guys are borderline locks to make the Hall of Fame. You guys probably already know who I'm about to say, so we're going to start with Cam Hayward, our defensive lineman. He is a leader on this team, an incredible performer. He's having Defensive Player of the Year performances in his 30s. Are you joking? He helps the entire defensive line. Cam Hayward eats up double teams. That helps guys like Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Chris Wormley, Tyson Alualu, recently Stephon, not as of late, but Stephon Tuitt also. Cam Hayward is a likely Hall of Famer, in my opinion, when it's all said and done. He's an incredibly hard worker. You see what he does off the field. He's also an incredible human on and off the field. He's a leader on this team, a really important player to not only the Steelers, but the city of Pittsburgh, Cam Hayward is going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer someday down the line, and I'm excited for when he gets that. Now, you know who I'm about to say. I saved the best for last. Trent Jordan Watt. We all know he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. I don't know what the Watt parents were feeding their kids, but for all three of those Watt brothers to make the NFL, I mean, one of them might not be a Hall of Famer. We all know who that is. He's our fullback. If you're down, TJ's a guy who puts you back into the game. I look at the Seahawks game. I look at the Chiefs playoff game. Now, I know we lost that game, but TJ Watt was really the only one who showed up, scoring touchdowns in that game. What? TJ is a game wrecker. This guy is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. If TJ Watt is in the game, you have a shot. He's the best player at his position. Not even arguably. He's like obviously the best player at the position. Defensive player of the year. He is easily a first ballot Hall of Famer. TJ Watt will be a Hall of Famer someday. My name is Devin Engel. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed that list. Let me know who you think should and shouldn't be on this list. Let me know Let me know what you think. Love y'all. Hope you have a good one. Thank you to my patrons and YouTube members who all donate as little as $1 a month to my Patreon and YouTube member page. Hey, if you have $1 to give, I would really appreciate it. $1 goes a long way for me. Helps me move to my favorite city in the world, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'll be there in September for the New England game. Hope to meet you there. Excuse me. Hope you have a good one. I'm going to bed. I work early. Love you. Here we go.
Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl.